Here we are, the last standard video before the Halloween special. There's 10 new obscure DOS games here, they're all unique in one way or another and I'm keen to share them with you. So let's not waste any more time and jump straight into it. GoGo Uribyeol, which I've no doubt butchered the name of here, is a Korean top-down vertically scrolling shoot 'em up. It's another of those games that could have been more popular if it ever got Western release, as it's not that bad actually. Sure, the cuteness seems to be spilling out of the screen, sweetening everything up beyond belief, and to the level most sane minds can't comprehend, but don't let it fool you, as it's not an easy game whatsoever. For the most part, it plays like your everyday bullet hell shooter, with numerous enemies coming at you, showering the screen with projectiles, and interesting, more demanding bosses popping up every once in a while. But unlike most other games in the genre, you don't die after a single hit but have a health bar, so clearly devs knew how demanding their title ended up being. There are a couple of weapons available from the start and they can be upgraded to more powerful versions for more oomph during those high pressure difficult encounters. Graphics, while cutesy, are really nice, although I feel like the reduction of size of bullets, both yours and enemies, would be of benefit to gameplay, as they wouldn't have literally covered the whole screen and it would be easier to navigate between their countless collision boxes. Sounds and music are decent, even if nothing to write home about. Overall, GoGo is a fun but difficult shooter that you should definitely check out if you get a chance, as it's really difficult to come by in the West. What does tried and tested Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man formula need to become relevant again? Nothing, some would argue, but since these two originals already spawned countless clones, I can't agree with that statement. A novelty, anything creative that would shake up the formula or introduce something unseen would be welcome. Enter Greedy, Pac-Man with 3 extra coatings of foundation, fresh layer of lipstick and a dark enchanting eyeliner. On the surface, it's the same game where you pack your way through mazes, munching on pellets and avoiding ghosts. Other than the typical for Pac-Man power pellets, there are also numerous power-ups like movement speed upgrades, score multipliers, wildcards and invincibility among others. And power downs like reverse controls or inability to eat pellets for a while, to name a few. Fun stuff, real game-changing pickups, right? And all these make the familiar gameplay mechanics fresh and fun once again. Other than that, there's also a limited rechargeable speed booster that you can use at any point, provided that it's ready. And it will save your life more than once, I promise. You can earn extra lives by collecting a matching group of colorful crystals, rather than the set amount of points like in the original. Greedy may not be as iconic or as fondly remembered game as Pac-Man was, especially that it released years later, but it can definitely be as fun, if you're in the right mindset and don't mind a bit different, albeit refreshed gameplay formula. Included level editor adds a lot to the replayability too, if you're someone who likes to create your own stages. H.U.R.L is a very unusual first-person shooter. Did I say very enough times already? Just to be on a safe side, very unusual. Like Ken's Labyrinth, but more. Okay, some of you may know what I'm getting at by sheer mention of that other game. H.U.R.L targets kids as its main audience, but younger ones, those that don't crave bloody action Doom provides, but are still very much into Sesame Street, rainbows, unicorns, plushies, Barbies and blue clouds on white sky. Sometimes all rolled into one. But let's cover the plot first, as it's kid appropriate too. Bob the Slob, a leader of the hardcore union of radical litterbugs, the titular H.U.R.L, took control over so-called Slob Zone, surrounded himself with equally as dirty animals that serve and protect him. On top of that, he did the unthinkable, the terrible, the crimiest of all crimes. I know, no such word, who cares? He stole all of the world's clean underwear, so only what's still in used underwear vending machines in Japan is what we're left with. Not enough, I'm afraid. So what you have to do is to recover it. But to get to the Bob, you need to go through hundreds of his dirt-loving creatures, and they will continuously attack you with eggs, cigar smoke and other nasties, just to stop you in your tracks. Since H.U.R.L is a game for kids, you're not really shooting at or killing them either. You toss bars of soap, water balloons, deodorants and likes at them to clean them up. And when they are, finely clean that is, they don't die. They just sorta lose interest in you. On the flip side, you can't die either. You just get more and more dirty from enemy attacks and eventually become so-called slobbed and have to repeat the level. That's it. Your quote-unquote ammo is found or purchased at vending machines in exchange for rubbish that you collect while playing. There's 10 levels in the game, they're all unique and hardly any assets repeat between them. For the most part, there are also locations from real life, like school, bus stop or a farm, but sadly, they're not very big. Perhaps not to confuse younger gamers, or perhaps the reason was different. We will never know. What we do know, however, is that apart from being directed at preteens, H.U.R.L was pro-eco, teaching of importance and benefits of cleaning up of public spaces. A noble initiative, no doubt about that, but it clearly wasn't noble enough to guarantee the title's popularity. Happyland Adventures is a cutesy fantasy side-scrolling platformer, in which you play as a small dog that has to gather and save all the lost colorful animals and then lead them to the so-called happy zones. Animal heaven gateways perhaps? Or the farm that so many of us were told about when our pets died? Neither, I think, as they all seem to be in the tip-top shape. Once you manage to save enough animals and deliver them to the happy zones, you're free to move to the next stage. Not many people know this, but this little gem of a game was created as a freeware entry for the Game Dev contest, and then easily won it. Unsurprisingly so, as behind the over-the-top sweet graphics lies hell of a game. Something that many would willingly pay for, given its quality. There are obviously numerous pickups other than the animals that supplement your score, and enable extra abilities for a little dog, and what feels like hundreds of hidden locations full of gems and fruit to gather. The final version of the game included earliest standalone Xmas expansion and the level editor, addition of which spawned numerous user-created levels that extended the life of this amazing platformer considerably. My first experience with Happyland Adventures was when I was at uni studying to become IT technician/teacher, believe it or not, and had to spend some time teaching IT in primary and secondary schools to gain extra credit and necessary experience. And I happened to end up in the school that my youngest sister was a student of. Well, I aimed to get there, chances were slim but stars aligned correctly, and I landed where I was supposed to. And everyone in her class played Happyland every second they got free, as if they were possessed by it. At first, I disregarded it as a game for kids, after all it was not played from the first-person perspective, there were no guns and no cities or nations to manage within it whatsoever, so it was definitely not a title for me. Or so I thought. But then I gave it a go one of those days and I was instantly hooked. It's easily one of the best PC platformers of the late DOS era, and one you should do yourself a favor and check out. Oh, and I'm not a teacher today. I'm an unhappy office worker of nondescript job responsibilities in a small privately owned family business with weird connections all over the world, few odd business trips on my resume, and hopes and dreams to change that career for something else. Hard Nova is an incredibly ambitious sci-fi space exploration role-playing that I never knew of, and it's a pity because it looks like something I would have loved. In short, your spaceship was shot down and only you and the navigator managed to escape with your lives. Since you still have a lot of contracts to complete, you're a mercenary after all, your group's head gave you a new small ship and a task of finding and forming a new capable crew and complete set jobs. All that happens as the universe is in turmoil. Various groups fight for the supremacy in the so-called force systems that the game takes place in. The sun of one of the remote planets is dying, and if no one's gonna step in to do something about it and change the history, the entire race living on the surface will soon become extinct. There's a lot happening is what I'm saying, all around. You can play as he or she, Stark or Nova respectively, a mercenary survivor. They differ slightly in abilities, which will telegraph itself best during mid to late gameplay and in dialogues. So you'll have to hire crew, and they are all described by two sets of separate abilities, land and ship based. First are mainly but not only combat centric and will generally speaking improve crew's affinity towards fighting on land. Ship based abilities are more technical and will be useful both in and out of space combat. Each crew member has to have a assigned role on your ship, so you'll need a pilot, technician, engineer, and so on. Upon gaining levels, you can manually assign experience points to various skills to improve them for characters who leveled up. When orbiting planet, you can take a hovercraft to land on it, and the approach and landing is done manually. It requires a bit of practice, so it's best that you start as soon as possible to get used to it. You can take 3 crew members to the surface, and it's best to pick them in a way that their skills would complement each other, as they will not only take part in combat encounters, but also interact with other characters and partake in all sorts of generally speaking role-playing activities. It's worth pointing out that in land-based real-time combat, you only have a direct control of the party leader. Hard Nova's universe is composed out of 4 star systems: military-focused Ariel, resources-rich Ruin, fuel and water abundant Siberian, and Mastasani, where you start the game. Each of them consists of many planets and they are connected via a grid of stargates. Your ship can naturally be upgraded when progressing through the game with more advanced components or weapons. And since you can do that, it's clear that there's money in Hard Nova. And where there's money, there's trade. And yes, you can, will, and have to participate in it too. 2 of the most prominent features of the game are its plot, which while tad linear is not restrictive and full of unexpected events, twists and turns, and openness of the game world, which coincidentally is the game's biggest fault too. Cause while it allows you to basically go anywhere you want from the get-go, if you decide to do so and sidestep from the main plot too much, you may encounter parts of the future quest dialogues here and there, and then when you eventually get to them, you may not remember what was said, and there'll be no way of coming back to it. So yeah, it's not game-breaking, but may require you to note things down when trailing off of the beaten path, so to speak. Either way, Hard Nova is a unique game worth checking out. Hotshot is one or two player sports/arkanoid mixture of a game, with the second player controlled by human or CPU. Your choice, though you know what I feel about playing against CPU in such games. Hotshot is viewed from a side perspective, and the idea behind it is that simple. The screen is divided in the middle vertically to more or less half of its height, with both players standing on their own sides, and blocks hanging above them. The aim of the game is to destroy the blocks on your side of the screen before the opponent does it on his. So you do so by sucking the ball using your Hoover-like device and then shooting it out at your side's blocks. Now, in most Arkanoid-like games, you'd just keep grabbing the ball and throwing it at the blocks, hardly ever losing possession. In Hotshot, it's impossible, as quite often the ball starts moving erratically, not in the straight line, or not following any even simplified rules of gravity. It's not a constant issue, but persists often enough to be extremely annoying. Worst of all, it's by design. For the most part, it makes the game feel totally random, and as if your skill or lack thereof didn't influence the outcome of the game considerably enough to feel like you were actively participating in winning or losing. In competitive games, I feel lack of control and participation are the biggest of sins. And one I've not seen often, but little title named Pro Soccer 2190 on Amiga comes to mind. That's not a story for today's video though. If any of the players fail to catch the ball or is hit with it, he is knocked down and possession is moved to the other. Personally, I can't recommend Hotshot to anyone, but if you're someone who played it back in the day and found it fun, please let me know why. In the comments below, obviously, as it seems like a punishment to me and not a game. Somewhere in the heart of the nondescript South American country lies a secret industrial complex hidden in the tropics. Its exact purpose is largely unknown, other than that it's used for illegal experimentation, whatever that term may mean. Also depends on who is the decisive side here, cause a thing illegal in one country may be completely fine and common in another. The best example of that are the Kinder Surprise eggs, which are omnipresent all over Europe and generally speaking part of our childhood experience, while in the US they are not available at all. At least not in the same form of a toy hidden in a plastic egg surrounded by the milk chocolate outer layer of goodness. Granted, most of the toys in them suck, but the sense of anticipation and then discovery you experience as a kid opening one of these while munching on delicious sweet milky crust is rather special. One way or another, coming back to our game, any attempts of infiltration of said base proved unsuccessful and many good men were lost trying, as the task is clearly above pay grade and skill set of regular secret agents and most special forces. It is decided that the best of the best, the one and only, the hero, must be the one to do it. I'm not sure what strings had to be pulled, favors called in, or how much money was spent, but probably close to a budget of a small South European country, but eventually you agreed. So, you must enter the complex and deal with the forces behind its existence. Industrial Killers is a sci-fi espionage-themed first-person shooter. Sounds great, right? Well, it isn't really, as it was only conceived to serve as a technical demo for the developer's pie-in-the-sky software 3D game creation kit. So as games go, it's rather limited. The software though is a powerful piece of programming. Not as capable as real 3D engines, but it could be used by those less tech-savvy too. And that's probably its biggest selling point. Never mind. The game is short, simple and not great, but it's interesting. So if you're into checking out all of those quirky old games, it's definitely one to try out. As Jetstrike's story goes, the evil forces known only as SPAD, with double D, not like the potato, have been working behind the scenes to corrupt and eventually overthrow governments of most major countries all around the world. It's been in the works for so long, in fact, that stopping SPAD in peaceful manner no longer seems feasible. The only response that's left is violent. Even worse, you can't really expect any help from anyone, as major countries in most cases are already corrupted and either paid off or straight up working for the SPAD. So you, your commanding officer and a friendly and incredibly gifted mechanic are all that stands against the total and final chaos. And this is where the game starts. If you like Wings of Fury, you'll love Jetstrike. It's same but different. A more varied, bigger and in my opinion better game. Sure, the controls are not as intuitive and not the easiest to comprehend at start, but when you get used to them, they will end up feeling very natural. The game offers dozens upon dozens of various real-life planes from different eras, helicopters and other not necessarily realistic flying vehicles and creatures. The campaign is composed out of loads of missions, 135 if memory serves right, so more content than majority of arcade games offered at the time. So you'll be destroying enemy installations, you'll engage in complicated and demanding dogfights, you'll perform bomb runs, and will even drop friendly personnel behind the enemy lines. and all that is just scratching the surface. There's quite a few weapons to choose from too, and you'll have to arm your craft before each mission, keeping its objectives in mind. Jetstrike's sounds and graphics are really good. Perhaps not the best for the year, but very detailed and smoothly animated, guaranteeing that all your fails are yours and yours alone. And you will fail here and there, on some of those more demanding missions that is. But you know what? You won't care. You'll just jump back into the next craft and will keep trying. Because if you pass that initial high entry threshold, Jetstrike becomes hell of a game and it plays like a charm. That initial challenge, along with lack of any useful tutorials, are the biggest factors in its lack of popularity, I feel. I may be wrong, but I credit the two with this real cool game's obscurity. Jump and Bump sounds like a sports move, but it's not. It's a fun single-screen arcade platform party multiplayer bash. I know, a lot of words you just heard there and they don't really make much sense in a string like that chained together in one sentence, but hear me out. In Jump and Bump, up to 4 players playing on the same PC or over the network fight for points. And quite literally fight, as the game is extremely bloody. Your task here is super simple. Just jump on another bunny's head, effectively killing and then respawning it somewhere on the level. All to get the point. Yep, just one. Ichi, Eins, or any other way you can telegraph a singular racing score. Each kill is an extra point, and whomever gets more points wins. And by extension of that, is more of a killer bunny than all other killer bunnies are. If you have a good gaming keyboard, Jump and Bump is incredibly fun and one of the more laugh-inducing multiplayer ROMs few of you can have sitting at the same screen. And a definite candidate for an Xbox Game Pass remake / re-release. It would be a great fit. Now, there's tons of different levels in game and hundreds more available for download online. Learning the layout, strong and weak areas, and how to effectively use environments in your favor like springboards, slippery surfaces, water and such will be a key to demonstrating to your soon-to-be ex-friends how much better of a gamer you are than they could ever be, or just to have fun on one of those lazy afternoons. Your call. Jump and Bump is very simple game, but it proves that they don't need to be overly complicated, feature tons of special moves, exploding attacks, hidden areas or such to be fun. All you really need is few over-the-top cute killer bunnies, buckets and mops ready to clean all the blood, and a couple of friends to have fun. That said, Jump and Bump requires at least 2 people, as there's no CPU to take their spots, so if you're all alone, it loses 99.9% of its appeal. Leo the Lion, developed by Lyrix Longsoft and published by CD Projekt, now of Witcher and Cyberpunk 2077 fame, is a Polish cartoony action-adventure platformer. Your task, playing as titular skin Leo the Lion, is to recover crown that was stolen from you. To do so, you have to travel through 4 islands of 3 stages each, so overall 12 beautifully lush levels covering areas like swamps, magic castle or a pyramid to name a few, all within the so-called Lion Archipelago. And you'll also be fighting off baddies big and small, collecting and using various objects and solving puzzles. Items like machete, coconut, stick, fly swat or snow pick will all have certain usage scenarios marked with appropriate icons. While you do all that, you also have to escape the island beating the volcanic eruption, so there's that. You're not really fighting the timer though, but it's in the game's story, so was worth a mention. The graphics are fantastic, which is both good and bad. It's great because the game looks excellent, like a real-life cartoon that you can participate in, and have the character and his surroundings respond to your controls. And bad because while all the enemies are nicely animated and large, with a lot of detail to them, it makes it difficult to gauge by eye where the collision box's borders are, and can lead to uncomfortable situations while playing. Leo the Lion was marketed towards younger audiences, which was a mistake on CD Projekt's side, as some of its puzzles and levels are designed in a rather challenging manner and maybe just a bit too difficult for younger ones. Interestingly enough, when Leo the Lion came out, it only sold 10,000 copies. Which is a terrible result, but in the same time it's estimated that close to 150,000 illegal copies were circling around, most of them in Poland. A few years later, piracy would mostly die off in the country, but in 1996 it was one of the reasons why the game failed to gain any real traction and bring developers money. Leo's abroad reception was rather cold and it never reached respectable sales either. It's a fun, if a bit underrated game that definitely deserves another chance. So, 10 more games covered and still so many to go. Did you know of any of these? If not, do they look something you'd like to try out? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below. If you didn't, well then there's thumbs down there too. But I suppose you wouldn't have persevered up to this point if you really didn't. Around 60% of you are not subscribed and there's currently no way of knowing if YouTube will decide to recommend you the next episode or not, other than subscribing and hitting that bell, that is. And when you hit that bell, whenever the new video is out, YouTube will actually send you a small and friendly notification about it, so you wouldn't miss it. If you'd like to support the channel, Patreon and YouTube memberships are a great way of doing so. They will help me release better content, and also they get first dibs on all new videos before they're publicly accessible on YouTube. If you can't or don't want to do that though, likes and subscribes are great too. I would like to take a moment here and thank all the YouTube creators from whose videos short bits were taken to serve as a background to my commentary. They're amazing and stars among the retro community. You will find names of their channels at the top of the screen when their footage is running, and also in the video description below. For me though, this is all, so have a good one and I'll see you next time. Peace.